Namaskar to all of you. So, Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is considered to be the essence of all the ancient Vedic literatures of India. The concept of adherence to the guidance given by the Vedas is extremely profound, philosophical point. In Vedanta, it said at the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra, Athato Brahma Jigyasa, which means now that your soul has taken birth in a human body. You must have a human body because animals can't read Vedanta. They can't speak such a language. So Athato, now you have been born in a human form. Brahma Jigyasa. One must inquire about the ultimate reality, the absolute truth. Animals are very busy in just trying to find a comfortable way to eat and sleep, shelter, to defend themselves and so on. But human beings have this extra dimension to them, though we also have some bodily necessities like animals also, but there's something human beings have which makes them special. And that is the ability to ask the questions. Who am I? And what am I doing here? What is my purpose? What is life and what is death? Is there something more? Do I continue to exist after the destruction of the physical body? From where have all things come? These are the questions that the human beings can ask. But we are not equipped, unaided by ourselves to actually discover the answers to these things. Some grace is necessary. So Vedanta tells the first thing, Athato Brahma Jigyasa, now you are a human being. Your first and foremost, even exclusive duty is to find out Brahma. Brahma means, what is the greatest thing? Who is the greatest? The ultimate reality. This quest is your mission in life. So then, in the next sutra, Vedanta tells us, Janmadhyasya yataha. The ultimate reality is that from which all things have emanated. So this is a very profound point, because some persons, they get lost in a realm of fantasy and egotism. And sometimes they think, maybe I myself, I am the ultimate reality. And especially if they smoke a little pot, then they suddenly have the realization that yes, I'm God. Then when they come down, then they forget. Oh. So, the Vedanta is telling us, no, Janmadhyasya yataha, that supremely unlimited, powerful being from which the entire universe and all the souls who are present within it, including ourselves, from whom everything has emanated, that is supreme truth, supreme reality. Then, Vedanta tells us, Shastra Yonitat. Shastra Yonitat means one can know that ultimate reality through Shastra. Shastra means the revelation of the Vedas. Now, it's very fashionable these days to have not any trust in the revelation of some scripture. And there are some good reasons for this and also some bad reasons. Right? Some good reasons are, anyone can write something and say, oh look, this is a divine revelation. Right? And many people have been tricked and fooled in the past and so on. And so persons become skeptical and they say, look, your rationale is circular. Why? Because you say, oh, here is the path to God. And then you say, well, how do you know that this path is true? And you say, oh, because it's written in this holy book. And how do you know that the holy book is true? Because it was revealed by God. So someone will say, so the book itself tells you that it is revealed by God. And that's the evidence that it was revealed by God. And so on. So it becomes circular. So, but Vedanta is giving another idea. Vedanta is giving this idea, Janmadhyasya yataha, God is that from whom everything has emanated. In other words, God is the cause, and everything else is His effect. Now, if God is the cause and everything is His effect, then it is impossible for an effect to be able to know its cause. It is impossible for the effect to know its cause. This is a metaphysical axiom, an axiom of metaphysics. We can give an example. The eye can see any gross object before us, like a house. So the eye can know the house. But the house, which is of a more gross nature to the eye, cannot know the eye. Now your mind can know what the eye is seeing. Right? Mind is more subtle than the physical eye. So the mind can know what the eye is seeing and also know the house. But the eye cannot see the mind. You cannot see your mind or anyone else's mind with your eyes. Because the eye is more gross, the mind is more subtle. Like this. So similarly, the mind is seen, your mind is seen by your soul, Atma. If you close your eyes, you can kind of look and see what's going on in your mind and be somewhat distinct or detached from it. So your Atma, your soul, can see mind. But the mind cannot know the soul. If you try to philosophically speculate with the mind, what is the soul like? You cannot. You have to meditate and shut the mind down. The mind has to go into the state of equilibrium. In Gita, Krishna said, Samatvam yoga uchita. Yoga means when the mind goes into equilibrium. No the material mental activity at all. Then you can understand what is the soul. And the soul, the source of the soul is the Supreme Soul, God. So just as the house cannot know the eye, as the eye cannot know the mind, as the mind cannot know the soul, here we're going, more and more subtle. So similarly, the Atma, the Self, cannot know its cause, Supreme Self. It's impossible. However, that Supreme Self can reveal Himself to the soul. And when the Supreme Consciousness manifests Himself to the individual souls and gives teaching and instruction how they can rise up from the entanglement with the material body and the false ego identification with the physical realm and discover their true eternal nature, the medium through which the Supreme Being Brahman does that is called Shastra, the Vedas. So, in Vedanta, this point is being made that all of our instruments of knowledge, the five senses and the mind, they are insufficient and incapable of knowing what lies beyond their limitations. An example is often given that, let's say that you don't know who your father is. You've never met your father, you don't know who he is. So, the moment of your conception, was beyond your perception. No one saw. You can raise your hand if you were conscious at the time of your conception and you saw what happened. Okay? So at the time of conception you were there. But it was not possible for you to see what was going on. So that moment, that reality of your conception, which on the one hand is true, but on the other hand is impossible for you to experience. How can you discover who your father is? It's a reality, something that took place beyond the range of your senses. So how can you get information and discover who your father is? You can ask your mother, yes. You can ask your mother. She knows. So in this way, it is said that the Vedas are like mother. The Vedic scriptures, they are like mother because very lovingly they give reliable information to us about that reality which is beyond the limitation of our current perceptions. So, if that person, if his mother will tell, oh, I will tell you who your father is and this is where he lives. So, following the instruction of the authority, then you can go and you can see, you can have a direct experience. So in the same way, the Vedas, like mother, they give reliable information very lovingly how an individual can discover what is beyond their sense perception, and by following that teaching also have a direct perception of who is the father. So among the Vedic texts, the Bhagavad Gita represents the essence. It is only 700 verses of Sanskrit poetry divided into 18 chapters, and it's set in the form of a dialogue. This dialogue is between Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is playing as a human being in this world, and his friend, who was a warrior called Arjuna. So what happened in the prelude, in the build-up to the Bhagavad Gita, because it's part of a much larger text called the Mahabharata. So what happened was, Arjuna and his brothers, and they have step-brothers, 100 step-brothers, were involved in a conflict. And so this conflict escalated and escalated, and it turned into a war. So the Bhagavad Gita is set on the battlefield just a few moments before a huge battle is about to take place. So Arjuna, he's a bowman, he's an archer, and Krishna has offered his services to be the chariot driver. So always if you'll see a copy of Bhagavad Gita, on the front cover you'll see a chariot with horses, and Krishna's holding the reins, and Arjuna is with his bow and arrow on the front of every edition of Bhagavad Gita. And this is very significant. We'll return to the profound significance of this point at the end of the lecture. So, all the warriors on both sides, millions, have assembled together, and they've arranged their various divisions into phalanxes, into military formation. So the Bhagavad Gita begins with Arjuna telling Krishna, "Oh Krishna, please drive the chariot in between the two armies. I want to have a look at the persons with whom we have to contest in this trial of arms." So Krishna just saw, and he drives the chariot. So it's very interesting. In the Bhagavad Gita, we're introduced to God. How? He's just very humble and serving his devotee. It's not like the Wizard of Oz, where everyone's going on the yellow brick road for miles and miles, through so many tests, and then finally the curtain opens and like this. It's a bit, no. In the Bhagavad Gita, God is introduced in the beginning, but at that time, anyone is not saying that he's God. And Krishna very humbly He's just serving his devotee. Whatever he says, he's doing that very humbly and peacefully. So the chariot goes in between the two armies, and then Arjuna looks and sees the warriors on both sides. And he notices that he has relatives, very close relatives, very dear friends, his teachers, his gurus also, were on both sides. So he's thinking, actually nothing good is going to come from this battle. There are good people on both sides, persons I love and respect on both sides, and now everyone will fight and be killed. And he himself also felt like, I cannot fight. And seeing that, and we experience ourselves also in life, that sometimes there's a situation, catch-22, where whichever way you turn, something wrong, something bad will happen. Whichever option you go will have a bad result. It's the nature of the world. Everyone comes into those difficult situations. So Arjuna is in a very calamitous situation. And though he's very powerful, he's very brave, he's very courageous, but he's also very soft-hearted. And he really feels, he's feeling already the pain of the persons on both sides and their family members. And essentially he has a nervous breakdown. And he tells Krishna, now my skin is burning, my mouth is becoming dry, I'm trembling. And he dropped his bow, he dropped his weapons and sat down. He said, hey Govinda, I will not fight. So Krishna told him, oh, this behavior is not good. Anagyam jushta ashragyam kim akarvata. Arjuna. He's telling, this behavior is not good for a civilized person. It will not lead to a higher destination because you're neglecting your duty. It's your duty to fight on behalf of your nation and your family today. So don't be a coward. Klaibyam masma gamapata naita tvarupopadite. He said, don't give in to weakness of the heart. Get up and be brave. But Arjuna was not having it. He said, how can I engage in this ghastly warfare? He was feeling compassion for all the persons there. He said, even if I win, then afterwards I won't be able to enjoy the kingdom because I have gained the kingdom at the expense of the lives of others. It will be tainted with blood. So how will I be able to enjoy it? What's more, every activity has a karma. So if I kill anyone, this karma will come back to me also. And more than this, we see that there are so many men assembled on the battlefield. If they're killed, then what will happen to their wives? Their wives will have no one to protect them. And then other wicked persons will take advantage of them. And society will become polluted. Unwanted population will be born. In the Vedic culture, when it's understood that the consciousness of the mother and father at the time of conception attracts a particular kind of soul to that body. And so there's a ceremony called Garbhadahan Sanskar, where the mother and father, they pray, they meditate, they do some rituals of purification, and then the husband impregnates his wife. And by preparing their consciousness for this, then they attract a very spiritually inclined soul to be born in that family. But when all the traditions, the spiritual traditions and rituals are given up and left from society, then, of course today many people are conceived by accident. And then what kind of soul will come? Persons who have no interest in spiritual life. People who are very selfish and aggressive, like this. So Arjuna's saying all of these things. If the men of the society are killed, the ladies will be taken advantage of by wicked persons, then unwanted population will come and the whole society will just slide down into a chaos. So he spoke about the social implications of this situation. And in the end he said, I can't decide which is better. I don't know whether it's better to fight and kill them, or is it better for myself to be killed? Maybe if I'm just killed just right now, I put my weapons down and just say kill me. And then all the problem will be over. I won't have to deal with it. So maybe that's better. Or maybe I should just leave the battlefield. I should just become a beggar and wander here and there like a beggar, having given up my duties in life. So in the end he just said, Krishna, I'm not going to fight. Here we see that Arjuna gave 5 types of excuses. Firstly, compassion for others. Secondly, consideration of his own enjoyment. Thirdly, there may be some karmic reaction coming to me, sins. Fourthly, his decision was based on social considerations. And finally, he was paralyzed by indecision. So these 5 ways of thinking, and we all commonly think in these ways when we make decisions, all have something in common. You think about the social repercussions of what you do. You think about whether you get enjoyment from the situation or not. And so on. You think about compassion for others. So we all think about these ways. But these ways all have something in common. And that is, none of these perspectives, including the equation, well, what does God want? They're all different ways of thinking which entail a complete obliviousness to one's own role in relationship to God. So then, Krishna criticized Arjuna a little bit more. He told him, look, if you leave the battlefield, then all the other warriors, they'll criticize you. And because you're very famous and you've been honored by everyone, for one who's been honored, dishonor is more painful than death. And listen to me, even if you leave and you try to live the life like a beggar, in the end you'll end up fighting. Because you are a warrior, that's your nature, you can't suppress. So either you'll fight today, or if you go away, tomorrow you have to do it. But tomorrow when you do it, then everyone will be laughing at you, because they'll think that you were a coward. Like this. So Krishna was criticizing Arjuna for his weakness, for his breaking down at a time of a testing time. So far in Bhagavad Gita, there is no spiritual instruction. Nothing. I've been speaking so many things, and amongst this, there is no spiritual instruction and guidance. Why? Because Arjuna, he had not surrendered himself to Krishna. He was depending on his own intelligence, his own calculation and experience to make a decision. And this is the situation of practically everyone in the world. That even when a person is looking for a spiritual teaching, they don't look in an unbiased way. People don't look for a spiritual teaching in a way which is free from prejudice. But rather, they tend to look for some kind of spiritual teaching which confirms what they already feel is the truth. And say, this is a good teaching. Otherwise, they look for a teaching which can justify their own agenda. If someone has an agenda, it would be really good to have about 3 or 4 wives. I'll become a Mormon. People look for a religious system, not in a very straightforward and open way, but they're looking for something to justify their own agenda. But the reality of the situation is, we cannot become enlightened by trying to force the world to follow our agenda. One becomes enlightened by surrendering oneself to the agenda of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, up until this point, Krishna did not give any spiritual instruction to Arjuna, because a person who has the ego that I am very smart, I am very intelligent, I can make all the decisions, I understand things very clearly, I am wise and capable person, someone who has such an ego is completely incapable of hearing and understanding spiritual instruction. Because whatever they hear becomes intercepted and interfered with by their material intelligence and becomes distorted and transformed into something else. So, Krishna being God and knowing everything, he did not even bother to tell anything spiritual to Arjuna because he was thoroughly aware that whatever I say will be an utter waste of time because he thinks he knows everything. So then, by Arjuna's great fortune, he was still in a state of indecision. And he said, Karpanya dosha, we've come to the second chapter now. Karpanya dosha pahata subhava prishtami tvam dharma samudacheta tvam nishtitam bruhitan me shishaste ham sarimam tvam prapanam. He said, Oh Krishna, my mind is disturbed. I've become a feeble shadow of myself. And I don't know what is the true path of Dharma, righteousness at this point. I can't understand what is beneficial to me or detrimental to me. So, Krishna, now I become your disciple. And I surrender myself to you. Please give me instructions. Shishasteham sarimam tvam prapanam. So seeing this, that Arjuna had given up the reliance on his own intelligence, material intelligence, his own experience, and that he had, in a mood of complete submission, submitted himself before Krishna and begged, please instruct me really what is good for me, what is best for me. Then Krishna could understand. Now he can hear. He will be ready to listen and learn something new. As long as pride is there, as long as ego is there, as long as one is intoxicated with one's own capabilities, then it is impossible to learn something which is truly new and truly completely different from anything else that you have ever known. And it's necessary to learn something which is completely different than what we know, because what we know is in fact thoroughly illusory. If anyone in this world could understand the degree to which, the depth of illusion that they're in, they would just faint. The depth of our ignorance and illusion is so profound, and therefore the necessity to let go of all the material experience and calculation, to receive a new teaching, a higher perspective, something that was beyond our own capabilities. This can only take place in the relationship between the disciple who has a spirit of submission and service, and the Guru, the spiritual master, who has gone by the grace of his Guru and his Guru, going back to the time of Krishna, who has gone himself thoroughly beyond that illusion. So then, now Arjuna is ready, and of course these chapters, the first two chapters of Bhagavad Gita, they're preparing us as well, preparing the ground to make the ground fertile to receive the seeds of spiritual knowledge. So now Krishna begins to speak his first divine instruction. He said, Na tu evaham jatu nasam na tvam nemi janadiva na chaiva na pavisyama sarve vayam ataha param. Lesson number 1. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all the persons here. And neither in the future will any of us cease to be. as the embodied soul is traveling from childhood to youth to old age, so similarly, at the time of death, as you have changed your body so many times, once you all had a body about this size, where is it? Gone. Disappeared into the oblivion of time. Then you became youth, and then old age comes. So as you are changing your body within a life, when death comes, then it's just another change of body. Soul takes another body, and then goes through the same system again, like this. And a person who is truly sober, whose consciousness is steady, they can realize this fact. So the first teaching is that each and every one of us, we are eternal beings. You have always existed. How old are you? How old are you?
26.
Wrong answer. The answer is you have always existed. Yes. You know, your body is 26, but the self is timeless, beyond time. So we've always existed in the past, in the present, and we will always exist also in the future. But as within one life, body is changing, at the end of life, the soul goes and according to karma accepts another body and goes through this experience again and again. So, Krishna said, Dhiras tatta namuyate, a sober person, one whose consciousness is in a state of peacefulness and enlightenment, they are not bewildered by this, they understand how this is going on. And that is a very interesting fact, because when the soul goes to another body, it does not go alone. Because we all have two bodies. One is the gross physical body, which is made of water and earth and so on. The gross physical body. And within this we have, the soul has another covering, the subtle body, that is the astral body, which is the mind. So, when the soul leaves the body, it goes along with the mind. According to the precise state of mind at the time of death, one has a new body which corresponds to that state of mind. So, even though by the trauma of dying and taking birth again, the memories of the previous life are forgotten, but still the characteristics, your personality that you have from the previous life is still there completely intact. Just like a person, if they get a bump on their head and they lose their memory, they're still the same person, but they just don't remember what happened yesterday. Okay. So this is what happens. And I think anyone who has children, especially if they have twins, they can say, oh, even though my children were born in the same place, they have all the same experiences, same environment, same teachers, but they're two completely different characters. How did that happen? Why? Because these two souls have come from different previous lives, bringing their character development from the previous life, and now they've taken birth, and then as they grow, then it becomes apparent that these are very two different characters, even though their environment is the same. You see? So all of us are in different stages of our evolution that we've brought with us from the previous life's experience. Now Krishna said, a person who is sober, whose consciousness is very deep, can understand that. Why? Because everything that you do leaves an impression very deep in your subconscious mind. In Sanskrit that's called sanskar, impression. And so these impressions in the subconscious mind, you're not aware of them now, but they start to manifest into the conscious mind from time to time, and that gives us our inclinations, our desires and so on, are coming from the reactions of past activities, coming from the subconscious mind into the conscious mind. So a person whose consciousness is very clear and enlightened, they can look into their subconsciousness, into that is called chitta in Sanskrit. They can look into the chitta and see all the impressions of experiences from previous lifetimes. So those who practice meditation, they don't speak theoretically. Oh, this is my theory, this is my idea, that when you're born that's not the beginning, when you die that's not the end. They actually know it. They truly know it. But it's not something that they can only academically prove to another person. It can be proven when they teach the other person how to practice meditation and spiritual life, so they themselves illuminate their own chitta and see for themselves all the impressions of their previous life's activities. Understand? So then Sri Krishna explained to Arjuna that this soul cannot be burnt by fire. It cannot be cut by a sword. It cannot be dried by the wind. The soul is immutable, unchangeable. And just as a person wears clothes until the clothes become old and torn, then takes them off and puts on new clothes. So in the same way, the soul wears a body for some time until it gets worn out, and then he changes it and gets a new body. Like this. So, in this way, Krishna begins to give instructions about Atma Tattva. Then, Krishna explains to Arjuna about Karma Yoga. The thing is that we don't experience the world directly, but we experience the world through the mirror of our mind. So if you have a mirror and the mirror is covered in dust, then when you look you don't see what's really going on. So in the same way, when the mind is contaminated by many impressions of sense gratification, just eating and fighting and having sex and whatever people like to do, all different variations of sense gratification, these leave many impressions in the mind, and the mind becomes as if covered by dust. And at that time, we cannot clearly see or understand what is the world and what is the self. We cannot see our own soul, or to speak of seeing God. So, Krishna explained to Arjuna that there are 3 degrees of covering of the soul, the pollution of the mind. And this is called Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. In this material world, we see that everything comes into being, remains for some time, and then is destroyed. It disintegrates. So, the 3 energies of nature which cause creation, maintenance and destruction are called Rajas, Sattva and Tamas respectively. So Rajas means passion. The energy of Rajas causes things to come into being. Tamas causes their destruction, and Sattva is equilibrium. So when this energy, which actually is the cause of the manifestation of everything, including our bodies and our minds, and so on. When this energy is there in the mind, we can identify the presence of that energy, or the degrees to which this Sattva, Rajas and Tamas are present, by the psychological symptoms. You see? So when the tamasic destructive energy is predominating in the mind, then a person becomes lazy. They can't wake up early in the morning. They become angry. They become quarrelsome. They become depressed. They have so many addictions to whatever, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, internet, whatever addictions. All types of addictions, they come from the tamas, tamagun in the mind. So, then the next energy is rajas, that is passion. This makes someone have more discipline. In one sense, they have more discipline than a lazy person, lazy, unclean person in the lowest guna. Maybe you all know some people who are like that, in that energy. So, the person in Rajas has some more discipline, but it's very self-centered. They are proud, and they exercise discipline. Why? because they think I'm going to work really hard and I'm going to build for myself a great success and empire. They're always dreaming of the future when they'll become very powerful, influential, and their heart is thirsty that everyone should respect them and give honor to them. So when Rajas is there, the person is not lazy, they're very busy, but they're chasing after some dreams which amount to only their self-aggrandizement, that ultimately everyone should worship them for being a great person. When sattva gun, the energy of balance is present in the mind, then this is relatively, compared to the others, very good. Sattva makes a person patient, kind, because they're very sensitive and they can feel the pain of others, so they're very kind to others. It makes the person very humble. They're not hankering for the respect of others, but they can be very respectful to everyone else. Sattva makes a person very honest, very truthful. Even if to be truthful may come at some expense for himself, but still he feels that truth is a worthy cause of its own right. The person in sattva can intuitively feel that I'm a soul, I'm not this body. I've always been here somehow. They feel the eternity of themselves. And so, these three energies of nature, they're there to one degree or another in everyone, but in various degrees. And you can see, more or less, if someone is trained, their eyes are trained, and they have experience with the gunas, you can see any individual and you can tell what guna they're in. By looking at them or speaking to them for a few moments, you can understand which levels of the energy a person is in. You know? If they're there with a pint of beer and a hamburger, wearing the same clothes that they had on for the last 2 weeks, not smelling very fresh, and swearing, you can see this is tamagun. Is there. Someone is very clean, they're all clean, all cloth is very bright, and they're peaceful, and the eyes are steady, they're not nervous, very patient. Then you can understand, oh, this person, they have cultivated the high energy sattva guna. So, there are different types of yoga, and the different types of yoga are for people in the different gunas, to help them go from that guna up to the next one. You see? So, first Krishna speaks about karma yoga, and karma yoga is for persons who have a predominance of rajas, the busybodies. Those are busybodies. They cannot sit and meditate. If you tell them, please sit and meditate, they'll sit down, after 5 seconds their cell phone will go off. And then they always have to be doing something. So, if they try to meditate, they will sit and make a shopping list in their mind. Because they can't stop, they can't switch off. You see? So, if you tell them to do jnana yoga or dhyana yoga, they'll not become purified. They'll not make advancement. They're basically almost wasting their time. So for such persons, they have to do karma yoga. Karma yoga means the yoga of duty. You see that a person, they have a family or position in society, so they have some responsibilities. So in karma yoga, the essence is that the person should think, God is everywhere and in everyone. So I try to deal in a very respectful way with everyone. Whatever situation comes, as I'm performing my duties, however difficult it becomes, I'll try to not get angry. And I'll try to be peaceful and always stay calm. The person will think, I'm going to do my duty, and this duty I'm performing not for myself. I will think that God is watching me and I'll do everything nicely, thinking that, oh, He'll be pleased by the performance of duty. And the result of my work, what is that? Generally people are working to get money, and while they're working to get money, they're meditating. I'm going to get a new BMW, or a new house, or a new surfboard, or whatever it is, a new computer, a new cell phone, like this. So generally when people are working, they're working and they're inspired. There's something internally inspiring them, which is basically just a material object. And the mind is dwelling on that material object, and that's what's driving them. So what happens when you do that, then the mind just becomes more and more mixed up in the lower energies, in Rajas and Tamas. And so, the person who has Rajas will do karma yoga, but they will work in a sense of duty, thinking God is watching, I'm doing everything for Him, and they will not meditate on any object. They'll think, oh, if money is coming, this money I will use for the spiritual cause. Spiritual cause. For example, if someone has devotion to Krishna, they'll make one altar in their home and keep a statue or picture of Krishna there. So then they'll work and get money. With this money, they'll go to the supermarket and buy food, and then cook, and then they'll offer this to Krishna. I cook this for you. So they connect all the aspects of their life, their work, their shopping, their cooking, everything you can connect. That the mind is not thinking about how this physical body can get a buzz, right? Because that's all everyone's thinking about. The senses are all thirsty, the nose wants to smell things, the ears want to hear the latest CD by some pop star or whatever it is. All the senses are all thirsty, and when the sense comes in contact with its object, you know, when that chocolate ice cream touches the tongue, then we get the buzz, and we feel good, like that. What is this? This is called meditating on matter. Meditating on matter. So the point of this karma yoga is to still in your life you act. It seems like you're doing all the same things that you were doing before, but the mind is being trained to slowly stop meditating on the buzz, whatever that buzz is for you. Okay, and remember God. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I want to tell one other deep mystery of karma yoga. It's very interesting. You see, when you perform some action, in the future this action comes back to you. The reaction comes. That's karma. If today you see some poor person on the street, and it was a good person, maybe he was a soldier, and his mind got disturbed in the war, so he became a bit mad and he lost everything. And he's sitting on the street with nothing. And so you see him and you feel compassion, so then you pull $50 out of your pocket and you drop it in his hat. Like that. You do this today. Then next life, automatically money will come to you. A lot of money will come, not $50, more. So, like this, and also if you do something bad, if you're walking by and you see he's looking in the other direction, while he's not looking, you take some money out of his hat and put it in your own pocket. Then in your next life, maybe someone will burgle your house. I have a friend. She woke up one morning, came out of her room, and everything in the house was gone. Everything stripped away while she was sleeping. So you think it's funny, but she was not laughing. So like, how do these things happen? Things come to us, and also we lose things, and it's out of our control. This is karma, you see. But now this is the question that perhaps you've never considered. That in between you perform an activity, in the meantime, in between performing that activity and when the reaction comes, where is the energy of karma living? right? It's like if you go to the bank and you take some money out or you take a loan, then they make a ledger and they keep a score, right? How much you owe, how much you've given, how much you owe, and it's there, and later you will have to deal with that. So karma is a little bit like that. So where's the score being kept? Where is that potential energy which will in the future turn into the destiny that you have created by your own activities? Where is that living? The logistics of managing everyone's karma is a complete nightmare. You know, even Google could not manage it. The only person who has the vast and unlimited intelligence to manage the individual karma of every living being is Paramatma. Paramatma is the Sanskrit word, means the Supreme Soul. We have Atma, the soul, and Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, is present in the heart of everyone, seeing everything, and then he manifests everything. So, in Karma Yoga, a person realizes that when I'm working in the world, will I be a success or not? People now are taught, if you think that you'll be a success, you will be a success. People are taught like that. Of course, if you think you won't be a success, then it's unlikely, right? But just thinking that you will be a success will not guarantee anything, because it also depends on karma. Because in every activity, there are thousands and thousands of different factors involved. But like, for example, you came here this evening, right? And we have the ego, oh, I came here, it was easy. But actually, if your car broke down, then you would not be here. If you had a call from someone, some relative, they were in a problem, then you would have had to go somewhere else. If there was a traffic jam or an earthquake or anything, in every situation there are thousands of factors. So the success of any activity that we do only partially, fractionally depends on us, and many other things are involved. And so a person whose intelligence is clear, they never think when they do something that I am the sole cause of this success. They think, oh, it happened by the grace of God in accordance with previous karmas and so on. And this karma also, that karma was also, that potential was with God, and now He's manifested it. So in this way, just see in how many ways an ordinary person living their life in what seems to be an ordinary way, in how many ways can they be aware of God's hand in everything? It's a wonderful thing. We think that God is everywhere, in everything. He's giving the karma, the success or the failure of whatever I do is in the hands of God, like this. And to remain equipoised in the midst of everything. And to meditate that, oh, what I am working for is only His pleasure, not my buzz. You see? Isn't that wonderful? You can wake up tomorrow morning and set off into your life with this attitude. Your whole existence will be transformed. This is called Karma Yoga. And what will happen is, after a few years of living and working in this attitude, then the energy of Rajas that was in the consciousness is completely purified. And the conscious becomes sattvic. Amazing, it's amazing. When the sattvic energy now takes over the rajasic energy in the consciousness, then automatically one feels happiness. There's a joy, a satisfaction. Sattva is characterized by contentment in all circumstances. Isn't that nice? To be in a state of happiness which does not depend on any external situation. That's what everyone is looking for, really. So Krishna explains about Karma Yoga, practically how any individual who's fidgety and can't sit still, how they can come to the level of jnana, that means wisdom. And automatically in that state of wisdom, one can realize, I'm not this body. You can understand, I'm not this body. You can even understand, I'm not this mind. Even the mind is a covering of the soul. So when sattva comes, at that time you can understand what you are not. But you cannot positively understand what you are. In other words, yes, I'm not young or old, I'm not black or white, I'm not rich or poor, any of these things. I'm the soul, yes. But what positively is the nature of that soul? Sattva cannot reveal that, because sattva is still a material energy, but it's just the higher end of the spectrum of the material energy. So, to understand what is the soul, it's necessary to understand God. Just like if you find in the road a piece of metal, some kind of mechanical part, you pick it up. And if you don't know mechanics very well, you look at it and you might think, what is that? You cannot tell. But when that part is connected to the car, and then you can see what function it plays, then you know what it is. Because it's part of something greater. So in the same way, all of us, we are not the independent realities, but each and every one of us is a part of a greater reality. And we can only know ourselves, we can only know our true function when we are connected with that greater reality. And so the word for connection in Sanskrit is yoga. Yoga means connection. You know the old English word yolk. A yolk, I don't mean the yellow part in an egg. Y-O-L-K. Y-O-K-E. Yolk. Yoga. Yoga. It's yoga. It is the apparatus that the farmer uses that connects the horse to the cart or the bull to the plow. That which connects him is called the yoke. So yoga. It comes from yoga. Connection. So the different types of yoga are the ways in which we can slowly be purified to a higher and higher levels of consciousness and have yoga. That means that we as individuals be connected to the entirety of reality, wherein we can discover who we are. Understand? So in chapter 4, Krishna begins to introduce himself. What is his nature? Because we can only really understand our nature when we understand our relationship with the whole reality, that is Krishna, called Krishna. In Sanskrit, the word Krish means existence. Krish bhu vachakaha. Krish means bhu vachaka, means existence. So it's really important to clear this point, you see, because when the sound vibration comes from my lips, Krishna, then the sound travels through the air and goes into everyone's ear. But when everyone hears the sound Krishna, everyone thinks something different. Right? So one person's thinking, Krishna, oh, maybe that's some kind of prophet, right? Or some holy man, or some kind of priest or sage. Another person hears it and said, this is some mythological character from Hindu mythology. Someone else hears it and thinks, oh, he's the founder of some religion. Someone else hears it and thinks, oh, this is the name of God. But deeply, what does Krish mean? Krish means existence. Not a part of existence, but the entirety of all existence, excluding nothing and including everything, is called in Sanskrit Krish. Now, Krish also means attractive. Attractive. And so, we are attracted to that which has life, which is alive. If you see a dead body, then generally people just look the other way. But if body is alive, then we can be attracted. So, Krish indicates attraction. And this verb is also an active. That means that that entirety of existence also is a personality with consciousness who actively attracts others. Consciously attracts others. And how does he attract them? The syllable na. Na means ananda, or joy. A person who is very happy is attractive. Right? You see a miserable person, no one is attracted. Eh? Someone who is really overflowing with joy, everyone, or at least faking it for a few minutes. Like that. And there are so many people, like all the famous people, they get on the stage and they dance and they sing like that, and then afterwards they go and they overdose and kill themselves. Like that, right? It's true. Everyone, Kurt Cobain, Elvis Presley, Amy Winehouse, has a massive long list, right? Everyone's attracted. Look, they're having so much fun. They're having so much fun. 5 minutes later, they go and kill themselves. Like that. So, when we see that someone is really full of joy, we're attracted to them. But Krishna is not faking joy. Krishna means that supreme being who is includes all reality, who is conscious, is actually in endless, ever increasing, and not boring, but a variegated spiritual happiness. That's a really important thing to understand. I've met so many people and also read writings by persons who think that if there's such a place as the spiritual world or heaven, it's going to be totally boring there. Right? Everyone's sitting around on clouds, playing harps, saying, joy to the world, like this. God, I would just, it would just get on my nerves, all that happiness all the time, right? So, no, the spiritual world is not like that. The reason people think like this is because the happiness that we experience in this world is not actual happiness. It's just relief. It's just relief. We feel some deficiency, something is lacking, we're suffering, and we fight our way out of the suffering, and then when we stop suffering we go, oh, now I feel good. What next? But then of course some other problem comes, like that. So the happiness of the material world is not real happiness, it's like relief. It's just as if someone is strangling you, and then they let go, and you say, wow, that feels good. It's not really happiness, it's just relief from being strangled. So people think, if there were no problems and everything, I would just be bored. But the spiritual world is not like that. The spiritual world is full of astonishing varieties of transcendental joy. And that's a subject for another day. What are those spiritual activities? We'll discuss on another day. But for now, we're discussing the word Krishna, who is the entirety of existence, who is conscious, attractive, beautiful, and full of endless varieties of spiritual joy, is called Krishna. Krishna. So now, Krishna, he's playing, and why not? If God is unlimited, why can't he come here and talk? If he didn't, then you'd say, God doesn't care about anyone. Right? But if he comes, then you say, we don't believe that he came. And you can't win. So, but, because Krishna is very kind, he comes to this world once every so many billions of years and speaks the Vedic teachings. So he's there on the chariot with Arjuna, and Krishna said to Arjuna, hey Arjuna, imam vivashvite yogam praktavam aham abdeyam vivasvan manave praha manorikshvakave bhavit. He said, hey Arjuna, millions of years ago, I explained the science of yoga to a personality called Vivasvan. And then he explained it to the Manu. And Manu explained it to his disciple Ikshvaku. Evam parampara praptam imam raja shovidu. Means in this way, the transcendental knowledge was passed from guru to disciple, and it was coming down millions of years, but in the course of time, the chain of guru and disciple was broken, and therefore the science was lost. Because this is a knowledge that you can't get by the empirical investigation, we have to receive it from an enlightened person. So he said, in the course of time, this knowledge was lost. So today, I'm going to start the chain again by explaining it to you. the science of yoga, I'll explain to you, and the chain will begin again. This knowledge can flow throughout the world. So when Krishna said this to Arjuna, now Krishna and Arjuna, they are about the same age, roughly. They are, when the Gita was spoken, both of them were, Krishna was 46 years old. Krishna was 46. Yudhishthira Maharaj was 60 in the Battle of Kurukshetra. And Krishna was 4 years younger. So Krishna was 56 years old when he spoke Bhagavad Gita. Now usually if you see a 56-year-old person, then they have a white beard, grey beard. And so, but Krishna is completely young. He looks like 18. Completely looking young. Arjuna looks a bit older, he's got a moustache. So anyway, but they're the same age. So Arjuna said to Krishna, excuse me, I have a question. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask a question. We are the same age. How could you explain this science of yoga millions of years ago to Vidasvan? How is that possible? So then Sri Krishna said, let me explain something. He said, Ajopi sana vyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swam adishtaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Now you really have to open your consciousness to some new ideas. Something unexpected is being taught now in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna said, I was not born. I'm not like you. I was not born. My body is avyay, that means immutable, unchangeable. Other people are born, but I appear and disappear by my free will. For ordinary people, we are a combination of the body and the soul. But Krishna said, I am not a combination of body and soul. My body is my soul. In other words, my body is not material, my body is a spiritual body. That's called Satchid Ananda Vigraha. My body is made of eternal existence, consciousness and joy. That's incredible. It's not made of whatever, pasta, pizzas, whatever we eat. Our body is made of that. Krishna has a spiritual form which is made of condensed joy and pure consciousness, unlimited in dimensions. And as we are born from the womb of our mothers, Krishna, I was not born. By my own free will, from the transcendental plane, I intervene. I manifest myself within the physical realm of time and space. And then again, unmanifest myself into the eternal realm. Like that. This is a wonderful thing. So then Krishna said to Arjuna, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha chakladeham puna janma neti mameti sorjana. If a person can just understand the reality of how I play, how I am unfettered and unconditioned by time and space, and how freely in a joyful spiritual form I appear and disappear by my will, then that person will never take birth again in the material world. So, how can one understand this reality? Krishna said, Bhaktya tvananyaya. Only by Bhaktya tvananyaya sakya. This, my spiritual nature, can only be positively realized through devotion, through bhakti yoga. Patram pushpam palam tayam yomai bhaktya prayachati. Tadaham bhakti paritam ashnami prayatatmana. Krishna said, to do bhakti yoga is very easy. If you offer me just a flower, it's very easy to do. Pick some flowers, come before your altar and say, oh Krishna, this is for you. We do it all the time, right? You buy some flowers for your wife or husband or for Maybe your auntie is in hospital, she's sick, so you go, you bring some flower. If you love someone, you have a relationship with someone, what do? You give them some flower. Yeah? So Krishna said, doing the karma yoga is quite difficult. Doing Ashtanga yoga, all the postures and breathing, is very difficult. Bhakti is very easy. Just with love, you offer me a flower. Give me some fruit, some leaves even, or a cup of water. Just that positive acknowledgement that I exist. And that you care. That's all. Try it. So most people, they go to God and it's like, forget doing anything for Him. It's all, you just go to God with your Christmas list. Oh God, please give me this and give me that. No. Bhakti means just to acknowledge that God is a person. He has feelings. And you can have a relationship. So he said, Patam, you can give me flower. He said, Satatam kirtiyanto mam yatantascha vidavrataha. Those who have devotion, they always chant about me. They sing my names. As we are doing before our seminar today. We're chanting and singing. They sing my names, they chant my names, they meditate on my form, on my qualities and pastimes. They talk to each other about me. You see, this is all very natural. When two people meet on the street, what do? Say, how are you? I am okay. They talk about themselves. One person says, me, mine. Or they may say something about their children or their family. So they will say, me, mine, me. The other person, really? Oh, me, mine, me. So, very good. And the other person replies, me, mine, me. This is everyone just talking all the time about themselves and the things that they think belong to them. Like this. But Krishna said, no. Those who have devotion, when they meet someone, they talk with love about me. So to always be engaged in speaking, hearing, remembering Krishna, serving Krishna, making offerings of love to Krishna. Krishna, this is bhakti, and by this, this is the supreme method to go through all the gunas. Mancho yavya vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sargunam samatityaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. He said, if a person is absorbed in devotion, moment by moment, and they never interrupt their devotion to do any mundane things, then that person easily goes beyond the tamagun, beyond the rajagun, and what's more, they go even beyond sattva. And in that state, beyond sattva gun, instead of just realizing that I am not the body, they have a positive realization of who I really am. In other words, the degree to which our spiritual eyes see the spiritual form of Krishna, to that degree, we have a spiritual eyes. The degree to which the ears hear the vibration of the names of Krishna, our spiritual ears develop. The degree to which all of our senses are engaged in bhakti, to that degree, all the spiritual senses become purified. And when all your spiritual senses are awake, then you'll see that you're situated in a spiritual body, a spiritual form. So the message of Gita tells us that actually every single one of us at each moment is creating our next body. As the body that you have now, you have created yourself from the previous life's activities. Now you are creating the body for your next life through the things that you're doing every day, the habits that you're cultivating. So the Gita teaches us the method of living, bhakti yoga, whereby instead of creating another material body, but rather we discover our eternal spiritual body. And in that form, one enters into the spiritual world. And then we have graduated from the school of this, the tests, and the school of this world. This world is like, this world is not your amusement park. It's not a place for lounging around and trying to enjoy. Everyone wants to make just so much money so they can retire as soon as possible and just, whatever, play golf or go hiking or whatever people do. Like that. No. This world is an educational place where we each day try to better ourselves, to get a better understanding, and gradually become enlightened and fully realize God in our soul, and then we can graduate from this educational establishment of the material world and enter the spiritual world. Now, that experience does not come only when you die, but rather because the soul is never really the body. This is an illusion, like a dream. The soul is never really the body. So as soon as the soul becomes pure, one realizes the spiritual body and one's activities in the spiritual world, in that higher dimension, even while you're still alive. In this life, you don't have to wait till you die and then you find out whether you were right or wrong. But rather, only it's a question of purity of consciousness. If our consciousness is purified in this life, we experience that higher dimension here and now. And then when death comes, that's just like a snake shedding his skin, casting off the external body and being situated in the permanent self. So this is, there are many other ideas and details discussed in Bhagavad Gita, but this is an overall view of the trajectory and the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. So thank you very much for hearing very patiently. We have copies of the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic texts also outside if you want to see later. Do you have a document? And I'd like to extend an invitation to everyone also. If you'd like to visit India, you can take my card. And we have a very beautiful ashram in the holy city of Vrindavan. You can come and spend some time studying in India and practicing. It's nice if you spend a few weeks living in the temple and live the kind of monastic life for a few days. Then you can get a very, very powerful experience. So if you have the time, if you have the chance, please come visit India for a few weeks or a month or 6 months or the rest of your life as you like. And do that experiment, try the practice. Because honestly speaking, we're speaking some theoretical things, but without a daily discipline, spiritual discipline, all of these things will remain theoretical. But when we have a daily practice, then whatever we have said, one by one, each aspect of that reality becomes a direct experience. So now we're going to have some more kirtan, some meditation music, and then after that we'll be serving out to everyone a very wonderful vegetarian feast of prasadam, food which has been offered with love to Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna,